Hey everyone, welcome back to IELTS Time, your go-to channel for practical IELTS speaking lessons. I'm Archer, and today we're diving straight into a Part 2 cue card. Describe a time when you needed to search for information. You should say what information you needed to search for, when you searched for it, where you searched for it, and explain why you needed to search for it. We have two fantastic model responses from our regular contributors, Joseph and Blondie. First, let's hear Joseph's response.
One time I really needed to search for information was when I was trying to buy my first laptop for university. I wasn't very tech savvy back then, so I had no idea what kind of specifications I actually needed. I just knew I wanted something that would last a few years and run smoothly for studying and a bit of gaming. This was about 2 years ago, right before the semester started. I remember spending hours online comparing different brands and reading reviews. I watched a bunch of YouTube videos, checked tech blogs, and even joined a Reddit thread where people were discussing the best laptops for students. It was a bit overwhelming at first, but it turned out to be really helpful. Most of my searching happened online and mainly on Google and YouTube, but I also went to a local electronics store to ask a few questions in person just to double-check what I'd learned. The salesperson there actually confirmed most of what I had already found online, which made me feel a lot more confident about my choice. I needed to search for that information because I didn't want to waste money on something that wouldn't meet my needs. It was a big purchase for me at the time, so doing proper research felt really important. In the end, I found a good deal on a laptop that's still working perfectly today, so all that searching definitely paid off.
That was a really strong response from Joseph. Let's take a closer look at why it works so well. Joseph uses clear, topic-specific vocabulary like tech-savvy and specifications, and ends with a natural idiom. It definitely paid off. He also shows flexibility by combining online and in-person research, which makes the story sound authentic. And notice how logical his structure is. He begins with what he needed, describes how he searched, and ends with why it mattered. That's exactly the kind of flow examiners want to hear in Part 2. Now let's switch gears and hear from Blondie. Her story takes a more personal, lighter approach, but it's just as effective.
The time I recently needed to search for specific information was when I was trying to figure out how to properly care for a new houseplant. I'd just brought home a beautiful but slightly temperamental fiddle leaf fig. I'd heard horror stories about how easily they can drop their leaves and die, so I was genuinely nervous about doing something wrong. I needed really precise details, things like the right amount of light and humidity, how often to water it in different seasons, and what signs to watch for in case of root rot or pests. I wanted a clear, reliable care plan, not just vague advice. I did this search right after bringing the plant home, around 4 months ago in the middle of summer. Most of my research happened online. I started with plant care blogs and forums run by experienced indoor gardeners where people shared practical tips and personal experiences. Then I turned to YouTube because seeing someone demonstrate how to check soil moisture with their finger or position the plant near a window made everything much easier to understand. The reason I needed to search for this information was simple. I didn't want to kill it. It was an expensive piece of decor that brightened up my apartment, and I took it as a personal challenge to keep it healthy. After doing all that research, I set up a little routine for watering and sunlight, and thankfully, the plant's thriving now.
That was such a vivid and personal response from Blondie. Let's see what makes it stand out. Blondie chooses a relatable but slightly unusual topic, caring for a plant, and fills her answer with clear, descriptive details. She also shows variety in how she searches for information, using blogs, forums, and YouTube tutorials. This mix of sources makes her response sound natural and realistic. And just like Joseph, she keeps her story structured. She sets the scene, describes her process, and finishes with a reflection. This is a textbook example of clear, fluent storytelling. All right, It's time to brainstorm a few practical examples you could use for this Part 2 cue card. Describe a time when you needed to search for information. Example 1. Travel logistics search. Imagine you've just arrived in a new city and you need to get from the airport to your friend's house. A few days before the trip, you start looking for the best route using Google Maps, transit apps, and travel blogs. You compare different trains and buses to see which is fastest and cheapest. You do this because you want to save money and avoid getting lost in an unfamiliar city. You could start by describing what you needed, then explain when and where you searched, and finish by reflecting on why this information was important. It's a practical and relatable story for IELTS Part 2. Example 2. Cooking or recipe search. Let's say you want to cook homemade sushi for a dinner party. A few days before the event, you search online for a recipe, watch YouTube tutorials, and read blogs to see which method works best. You carefully check step-by-step instructions because you don't want to make mistakes or disappoint your guests. In your answer, you can cover what you were looking for, when and where you searched, and why it mattered. In this case, impressing your friends and learning a new cooking skill. Adding a few descriptive details about the process makes your story feel natural and engaging. Example 3. Local services search. Imagine one day your washing machine suddenly breaks, and you urgently need a trustworthy repair service. You search online the same day, using Google Maps and local community groups, reading verified reviews to compare options. You want to avoid unreliable services and save money, so this information is essential. When answering the cue card, describe clearly what you needed, when you searched, where you looked, and why it was important. Stories like this are simple, realistic, and easy to expand for 2 minutes of speaking. Example 4. Learning or skill search. Suppose you want to learn a guitar song during your summer break. You search for tutorials on YouTube and look up tablature websites so you can practice on your own. You do this because it's a personal challenge and you enjoy learning new skills independently. In your answer, make sure to cover all 4 points: what you needed, when you searched, where you searched, and why it mattered. You can also include a few personal reflections, like how you felt when you finally learned the song, to make the story more vivid. Alright, that's a wrap for today's lesson. We explored the Part 2 cue card. Describe a time when you needed to search for information. Joseph gave a practical, structured example, and Blondie shared a vivid personal story. We also covered 4 other examples: planning travel, cooking, finding local services, and learning a skill, all showing how to organise your answer around what, when, where, and why. Remember, adding concrete details and reflections from your own experience makes your story come alive and sound natural. Keep practicing with these examples, or try creating your own stories using the same structure. The more you practice, the more confident and fluent you'll become. If you found this lesson helpful, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with a friend who's preparing for IELTS. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next lesson.